Hello and welcome to DawgDial. I'm Josh Mendlinger here with Taco Thompson, here to talk everything Georgia Bulldogs football. Welcome to our Facebook viewers as well as our CRM Sports multimedia simulcast. On-demand media.
Multimedia enterprise.
There we go. So on CRM Sports, you can watch our listen to or watch our rebroadcast on Facebook Live anytime you want. Basically a podcast for those who are interested in catching up with everything Georgia Bulldogs. Again, we are here to talk about the past week's ball game and talk about the future ball game coming up next week. So we're going to talk about a little Notre Dame, Georgia, and then we're going to talk about a little Georgia Samford.
And to thank our host, Buffalo's Cafe in Woodstock, Georgia. So yeah, let's talk Georgia Notre Dame. Pretty exciting night.
Yeah, we're going to get into that and just and talk how Georgia comes up with a big win after traveling and going up above the Mason-Dixon line. So we're going to get into that and some of the historic moments that this really was, this ball game. Taco, what do you think?
A lot of nuggets here, and we'll get to those in the upcoming segments. We'll talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll recap some of the features of the game, some of the things around the game, and the fact that it's the second time Georgia leads the series 2-0 against Notre Dame.
You bet. And we also need to cover that it was the first start for Georgia quarterback, Jake Fromm.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that we discuss, how he looked, how he did, and what the future holds for Georgia football from the quarterback position. Do we have a quarterback discrepancy or a quarterback battle going on? Or are we just going full steam ahead with Jake Fromm, the freshman? So when we come back and join us again here, continuing on talking with DawgDial, we'll get to all that and a bunch more here from Buffalo's in Woodstock, Georgia. Look forward to chatting with you a little bit more, Taco.
We'll be right back.
Be right back. Test 1, 2. You with us? Test
I am
1,
here.
2.
Testing. There we are.
You ready? There we go. Let's get into segment number 2. Here we go. All right. Welcome back to DawgDial on Facebook Live and CRM Sports. We are here to talk everything Georgia football. I'm Josh Mendlinger here with Taco Thompson. So, Taco, we are going to get into the discussing, something that we always have to go over, the good, the bad, and the ugly of football, college football.
Absolutely. And it's early in the season.
It is.
But there is the good and the bad and the ugly. The good is we won. Or the 20-19 victory that we pulled out.
2014, Was it 19? 19, yeah, 1 point.
20-19, a 1 point game. So,
yes. I'm thinking of my son's game, which was 20-14 yesterday, on Saturday as well.
And they were winners?
The other day, yes.
Well, it felt good to go to Notre Dame. You've got, obviously, a storied program at Notre Dame. You go to South Bend, the first time the Bulldog faithful have been there. Actually didn't feel much like an away game, though. A lot of Georgia red in that stadium.
That was unbelievable, wasn't it?
It was a great travel game. It felt like the kickoff, when I saw it on TV, sounded like we were in Athens.
It did, absolutely. The Go Dawgs call live on the TV was pretty impressive, wasn't it?
It was a good one. So let's talk about the good. Overall, we got the win. I think a highlight of the game was that we had a solid defensive effort. We had the Bulldogs were holding Notre Dame to rushing of just 55 yards in the contest against what was thought of as a pretty strong offensive lineman at Notre Dame. Another good, that catch by Godwin in the corner in the end zone, that was a fantastic play. That was a turning point.
That's the go-ahead, yeah.
The go-ahead, and we were playing a little bit of catch-up. That's kind of a thing so far with Kirby Smart. Had some of that last year. Let's hope that the Bulldogs don't always are in the position of always playing catch-up, so play for the lead. Also thought that our special teams play was very good out there. A solid kicking effort. We missed one field goal, but the punting was good enough. We had some good returns on special teams. One was called back. Elijah Holyfield had the long run back. So pretty pleased with the good. Did you see anything else that was good that you thought was a spotlight?
Well, I think, our tandem in the backfield that everyone was talking about and the whole country basically was talking about, the 1-2 punch of, Nick Chubb and then having number one coming out to spell him, I think is a great way to go. That's pretty darn good when you get Nick Chubb and Sony Michel coming out to run against you. They are a force to be reckoned with, comparable to that Thunder and Lightning in the past that other duos have been called. I think that the good is that we made it out pretty healthy out of that battle with them.
185 yards rushing. I know that doesn't sound like a lot for most Dog fans, but 43 rushing attempts, an average of 4.3 yards a carry. So it wasn't outstanding. Notre Dame is a little bit of a step up from our last opponent in Appalachian State.
No, most definitely.
But I think the game plan was a balance between the passing and the running. So I like to see the balance there so that you don't totally have to rely on the running game. And thought Fromm did a very workmanlike performance in his first college start.
Absolutely, and that is something to be noted. First college start on the road in Notre Dame Stadium, of which Georgia hadn't been there in many decades. Unbelievable pressure on a freshman.
And handled it well.
I think so.
I think most Dog fans will look out there and say, well, there was nothing spectacular about the performance, but there was nothing. There were no dips. There were no real tragic events that happened. So
and part of the good as well is I think he did bounce back pretty well from the turnover, that fumble that he is responsible, I guess you could call it, for. That he had a bad exchange with the running back, and he came back the next series and still had his head up, didn't buckle under that pressure, and I think that's something going forward is a great plus for Jacob Fromm in the quarterback position, to see that as a freshman he's able to come back under big pressure, big-time play, under big-time circumstances, usually translates to some big-time future.
A good effort, and that's a good segue to talk about what the bads were. And you mentioned a fumble. We did have a
couple turnovers, yes.
And 2 turnovers and a couple of drop passes. One missed field goal. It was a long one. I think it was a 44-yard attempt by Blankenship. One of the other glaring things that I thought is a concern is our third down conversion ratio. We were 4 for 17, and I think the Bulldogs know that they've got to get a little bit better there. The last bad note that I had made was that I saw, too, that the offensive line blew a couple of assignments. I know Notre Dame did a stunt, and I think the offensive linemen, from what I saw, there were a few standing around saying, well, what just happened? Mm-hmm. So I think we've got to get a little bit better at adjusting some of those defenses coming at us, and I think we'll be able to get that fixed. So it's still the second game of the season.
Sure.
There are going to be things that need to be worked on, and I think those were more glaring versus a team like Notre Dame versus an App State or a Samford. So surely go back, and I think Coach Smart said it at the end of the game, let's keep chopping wood. Mm-hmm. So that was something he used in the game after the game. And chopping wood has sports references, but basically he's staying at it, staying the course, keep at it, and keep getting better.
But absolutely. One thing, I don't know if you call it bad, or and some people might, some people not, that I might have to point out, get your feelings on this. Number 18, Nada, was Nada there. He was there. He was playing. He was in position, but definitely a different set of targets for Jacob Fromm compared to Eason.
I think Nada caught one ball last night.
I think he did, and
probably wasn't targeted much.
No,
and so maybe that's that's in the playbook. So maybe it could be something to do with the scheme with Fromm being a true freshman. Don't know that exactly, but yeah, Nada's an asset, and I think we'll see more of him throughout the season.
I think so. I think maybe they just need to get that chemistry going between this new quarterback and that. I think Jacob Fromm and Nada will find it because he's an outstanding player, and I think they could have, in my opinion, I think they may have underutilized him at this with Notre Dame, but possibly anticipated that Notre Dame would be looking for him to get the ball a lot. So maybe that was a little reverse psychology by the coaching staff in Georgia. So we'll come back in a few moments. We're going to take a quick break, but we're going to come back and talk some more Georgia football with Taco Thompson and get a hold of, point out some other key plays and some moments in the game, and then before we move on to talk about next week's opponent in Samford. So stick with us here on Facebook Live. Stick with us on the CRM Sports Network. Look forward to going on with the Dawgs a little bit more.
See you right back.
All right. Let's get this reset now. We are back on the DawgDial. Welcome back on Facebook Live and our folks on CRM Sports Center to DawgDial. We are here in Buffalo's in Woodstock, Georgia. We are enjoying some wings. We are enjoying some tasty beverages here with our great serving staff and with our great atmosphere here. Great family venue. Coming out here to have some dinner or some lunch any time of the week. They are open 7 days a week here, and some
and
amazing
on Monday,
food.
Wednesday, all you can eat wings. Bash. They have bash nights.
Wing bash
all
nights.
You can
okay, on Mondays and Wednesdays. Awesome. All you can eat wings. Make sure you come out to any of the Buffaloes, for that matter. Have that same offer. So if you go to any of the Buffaloes in the greater Atlanta area or any of the suburbs of, you can go to that. And so definitely come check us out here, though, in Woodstock, Georgia. Drop on in, say hello to the great staff and the management, and get yourself a cold one as well as some hot wings or any kind of wings for that matter. Your favorite wing there, Taco?
I'm with the Carolina Fire. So I think I've been converted. They mentioned to me, hey, give it a try, and tried it. Not too hot.
Not too hot.
A little bit of the Carolina flavor in there. So
a little sweet and a little heat, huh?
My new favorite.
The mustard?
Yeah,
I like it. A little sweet and heat.
Yeah,
okay.
something different. A little bit different.
Maybe that could be a nickname for this running back tandem, Sweet and Heat.
Yeah.
That may have to be the way to go. What do you think? Think we could get that adopted nationwide?
I think you heard it here first.
Heard it here first.
Heard it here on DawgDial.
From Taco and and J-Dog here, right? That could be it. We'll have to make note of that. I'm going to write that down, and I'm going to have to
make a note.
And submit that for a copyright. Make sure that when all the T-shirts start going out, we can get a part of that, right?
So, what was some of your observations on the Dawgs?
Well, I tell you what, lucky number 7 was a pretty good number on the day. Notre Dame's quarterback did a pretty good job for them.
I like the number.
He's a pretty good quarterback for Notre Dame. But
really
we are here to talk about the Dawgs. And
they contained. I mean, I interrupt you there before you get to the 2 sevens. Wimbush is an excellent quarterback.
Oh,
so he is a dual threat. But I thought the defense did a great job of containing him, so they took his run away. And from a passing standpoint, we got a pretty good amount of pressure. We recorded 3 sacks in the game.
That's some key times too.
That's under pressure, so that's going to put the quarterback under pressure. It's going to make him think about things. So, and we'll go back to your point about the other number 7s that were wearing the red.
Yeah, absolutely. We had Lorenzo Carter, which we knew about, right, on defense, sticking with the defense. Linebacker, the senior, from Norcross, Georgia, quite a stud. He's a big guy to begin with, and he fills up a gap quite well.
Yep. I think if you look at Carter and Bellamy, we knew those were the 2 stallions and leaders on the defensive side of the ball.
Sure thing.
And add in 2 more performances from the game against Notre Dame is J.R. Reed and Roquan Smith.
Absolutely.
Both had outstanding games. In fact, J.R. Reed from his cornerback position was the leading tackler of the game. So he was all over the field. I thought I saw a lot of red flying around on that defense. So Coach Tucker and Coach Smart mentioned this after the game, that Coach Tucker has these guys on defense playing up to a higher level this year, I think.
They are energized on defense, it looks like, from years past history with Georgia Bulldogs. There seems to be a spring in their step, a little air of confidence, that a little chest thumping going on because they're being successful. Yes, it has only been 2 games into the season, but it just seems there's a little something different going on that with the defensive line and the linebackers.
Well, Notre Dame only scored once, put it in the end zone once. The other points all came off of field goals, so there's that. And again, I'll go back to the statistic. Notre Dame was only 3 of 17 converting on 3rd down. So the whole bend, don't break. And to be honest, the Dawgs trailed in, I think, I haven't looked at the stats, but field position, it always seemed like Notre Dame had their way during the night. There were a lot of penalties on Georgia. So what seemed to happen is that Notre Dame had better field position, but the defense would come in and put a stop on those third downs. It seemed like there were a lot of third and longs for the Dawgs holding Notre Dame. Thus, that forced several field goals.
Absolutely.
And keep them out of the end zone is a good thing.
Absolutely, I think the defense was outstanding. I think our coverage in the backfield, the cornerbacks did a great job of keeping the deep threat minimized. Obviously, there were a few passes that they did connect in. Again, outstanding quarterback for Notre Dame, but I think our linebackers covered when they needed to. There were a few deflections that they had. There were a couple of tip balls that I think we could have had and should have had to get turnovers in our favor or in the Georgia Bulldog favor, and we just missed. But that just comes with little nerves probably in that big setting, big time game, prime time TV. And a few of the players just missed it. I think it was 2 different times that they dropped a tip ball that could have been interception, and one could have been a pick six clearly, but the other one just would have turned the ball over to Georgia and could have had a kind of a I guess you could say just turn the momentum and start crushing the hearts of the Notre Dame team. But we kind of allowed them to stay in it by missing those. They kept it close.
Wimbush was 19 for 39. So and you felt it going into the first half. I mean, the Bulldogs started off with some early penalties, but I thought there was some good play calling. I thought Notre Dame actually came out prepared. Notre Dame is a quality football team. They're getting better. I know Coach Kelly's frustrated, and he's going to get a lot of flack from the fans. I mean, Notre Dame was favored to win this game. I don't know who comes up with those numbers. I didn't have that thought in my mind, but certainly Notre Dame fans did. And I know the Notre Dame faithful are going to be a little bit upset today, but hey, that Georgia defense, I think, was part of the key to the game. We've got some playmakers on the defense.
Oh, absolutely.
And you shut down Notre Dame. That comes back to the offense, and the offense loves a strong defense because guess what? You give me the ball back.
Right.
I'm going to go out here and do it again.
Right.
And I thought, scoring-wise, up through to the first half, I really thought, penalties aside, you can't take them out of the game. I thought the referees were a little jumpy, and there were a few calls. I think, and I'm going to look up the numbers, and maybe somebody on our live show can text in, but see how many penalties there were and how many yards. And I'm in my mind, I see 2 more scores from the Dawgs, less penalties.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
A lot of the 15-yard variety as well.
The personal fouls.
Not the 5. Yeah, interference, hold,
right.
Pushing the back on the long run by Holyfield on the kickoff.
Oh.
Boy, how exciting that guy is. And to have a push in the back way behind the play, it frustrates every coach.
It does, and I think that's in my mind. I think in the past we had many penalties, or Georgia had many penalties, and that was something they just couldn't get over. It seemed to be, I don't know if you want to call it during the Mark Richt era, that just seemed to always be penalties every game, haunting the team and haunting the players throughout the game. Just a high number. I think they averaged some of the highest number of penalties in the SEC East, and if not the whole SEC, for several years. And I think going forward, now that the season has started, yes, it's a second game, penalty is going to happen, but I don't know about you, but I just get that feeling that that's not going to be put up with anymore under this Kirby Smart regime. What do you think?
I think you have to address it. I mean, it's a discipline thing. You want the players out there flying around. They're flying to the ball. They're being aggressive. And, to some degree, some of those penalties are based on being aggressive. But you gotta be patient. You got to be disciplined. You got to avoid those. Not only costs you 15 yards, it costs 95 yards, maybe 7 points. So a penalty in the critical situation is not a good thing. I think this may have been the most penalties by a Kirby Smart team since his tenure at University of Georgia. So certainly they'll be looking at the tape and trying to figure out how to solve that.
No doubt. Well, let's take maybe a little swing over at the offense. You want to take a look at that?
Offense was 20 points. That's against a pretty solid Notre Dame defense. Again, if we look at Fromm, and Fromm was confident. He was looked like cool, calm, didn't seem to be bothered by the stadium. I didn't see a lot of high-flying throws. The kid has excellent touch on the football.
Certainly
he can
does.
throw a different routes. He threw corner routes. He threw post route. He threw long. He threw short. His average attempt or completion per attempt, I think, was under 5 yards. But that's, these days, that's the average you're not going to get up in the 20s with an average completed pass. But I thought he did well. The fumble play in the backfield, that's probably got to do a lot with getting in the flow and being with the first team in a live game environment. And those things are going to happen. You can't play perfect football.
Sure thing.
I think Coach Smart said what he should have done is just fallen on the ball. When he fumbled it, he tried to pick it up and go.
Yes.
And probably much better off to just fall on the ball and live another day.
Absolutely.
Play.
Yeah.
But you mentioned it earlier in the show, the running game. Georgia had in total rushing 185 yards. That's fairly standard average. It wasn't overly relied upon in the game, but it was there. We had some good breakaway games, some good rushes. Even DeAndre Swift,
sure,
new name on the scene. How do you like that last name?
There you go,
DeAndre Swift.
That's a pretty good name to have. Pretty
Touched
good
the ball a
football
couple
name.
times. Yeah,
he did, and he took off with it. That's absolutely shows another player to have to scheme against for opposing defenses. Absolutely. So I tell you what, we can talk about that a little bit later going into the future. What we can do is take a little break now on DawgDial here at Buffaloes and Woodstock, and we are going to come back and continue to talk with Taco Thompson. I'm J-Dog Mendlinger, and we will be able to wrap this up, the Notre Dame game up, and move on to a Samford opponent coming into the Hedges this week, upcoming game. So let's take a short break and come right back and discuss more on DawgDial. Look forward to seeing you. All right, welcome back to DawgDial. We are here in Buffaloes in Woodstock, Georgia. I'm J-Dog Mendlinger here with Taco Thompson, and we are here to talk about Georgia football a little bit more. We want to make sure that we get into discussing this quarterback situation. I don't know if it's going to be a situation. Is it a rising situation? We'll get into that. We want to talk about this outstanding receiving core that Georgia has, especially that unbelievable catch by Godwin, and then also want to talk about some of the, that number 7 coming up with that key play.
Which one?
Which number 7 on offense? DeAndre Swift, right? That's what we want to talk about, because I tell you, it's the first time there are a lot of similar numbers on both sides of the
How does that happen?
ball.
I don't recall that happening very often.
No,
really.
it's a new thing. I think it's a new thing with college coaches. They even need to talk about how they're changing players' numbers throughout the season. I'm seeing that throughout football as kind of a deception by college coaches, because these are still, I won't say kids, but young adults, right? That are out there, and they're taught or coached to key in on certain numbers, and then all of a sudden, game day, deception. That kid's not wearing the same number. So I believe that was an occurrence. This
I like the
Dawgs,
number 7.
87, number 87. I'll have to get his name. I forget who that is off the top of my head. For Georgia, he was not 87 at going into last season, last game. But this game, he was wearing number 87. I think it was 87. I'm sure that.
And they only brought 80 players to the game.
Well,
so
not every number is utilized.
1 through 99.
Well, that's not quite the way they do it. Even all the way down to midget football, they don't quite do it that way. But it's a good way. But let's getting back on track here. Let's talk about the fact that right now Georgia obviously went by necessity with the freshman starter at quarterback, with Jacob Fromm, with Eason going out last week with an injury, I should say. The question comes up and is always thrown out there: do you lose your job to an injury ever? This isn't professional, so it is college.
In some programs you do. There's seniority matters. Mm-hmm. In some, who got there first, who was there, and you got to dethrone that person from that spot. But there's other coaches out there in the higher level that you get in football. I think the best man plays the game. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the census here at Georgia. Let's hope. So far, what we're looking at here is what I didn't think. Oh, look!
Well, look at that. We got some wings delivered to us. Fabulous! Look at this. We got some amazing wings here delivered to us. So, what kind do you have over there? Just before we get moving here.
This is the. I think this is the medium to hot over here. Maybe that's the Carolina.
So you got the Carolina barbecue over here, right? Or Carolina?
Smells good.
It tastes good, too. I got a little bit on the fingers when we were moving them around. Well, thank you to our folks here at Buffalo's. Thank you to our serving staff. Thank you very much. And remember, when you do come out here, we got some good-looking wings out here now. Make sure you come on down to Buffalo's here in Woodstock and check it out Sunday.
Now back to the quarterback.
Anyway, but let's get back to quarterback. We'll get to eat later. Well, they're tempting. It's in front of us. But let's stick with,
I think what we've got here at quarterback, we've got a situation where in the game against Notre Dame, Eason obviously was on the sidelines, and I saw him, pregame, or they showed him once there. In his had a crutch, so the injury seems to be a little bit more severe. I know they want you to keep pressure off of that, so let that sprain heal. Mm-hmm. But number 11, 10 was on the sidelines. Number 11 is in the game. So
talk about next number up, next man up. Huh?
Next man up, not the same number at quarterback.
No, they don't.
They have different numbers.
They have.
But yeah, Fromm was good in his starting debut. And I think you have to go with Fromm. He didn't make any vital mistakes in the game. I think he was comfortable. Some call it a managerial type job of what he did in the game. So I would give him a B for that. So
that's fair.
I can't sit here and tell you that I think the quarterback job is Fromm's. A lot of people are supporting him and fans of him, as they should be. But don't forget, Eason was one of the most highly touted quarterbacks in the country. So in his second year, and he's only thrown 4 passes this season. So
right.
I think we'll let that play out. I don't know that we'll see anything coming from Eason in this next game coming up against Samford.
Sure.
So I think it's going to be a little while before we have to see the evolution of the Georgia quarterback spot.
Well, right. Well, the game after that, after Samford, we go back to the SEC, into Mississippi State. And there's the question. Jacob Fromm did well. Jake Fromm did well, I should say, in Notre Dame on the road. Whole different, I would hate to use the pun, but it's a whole different ball game when you start to play against the SEC.
It is a different league for sure. And we've got until the 23rd not to jump ahead or over Samford. They are a 1AA or FCS opponent, so we'll have that game and another week to go through to see how this goes. And I don't know enough, and neither of us do, what Coach Smart's head coaching mantra is going to be. How he's going to handle quarterbacks. This is his first big-time job as a head coach, so we're about to find out.
Yeah, it's a big decision. The coin toss, I'm not sure what you want to call it, but I think it's a good problem to have as a coach in his position to have you have multiple outstanding players, if you know what we're trying to say.
Absolutely. So you've got 2 different style quarterbacks out there, but you've got good depth and playing at a high level like Georgia does in the SEC. I think depth is critically important. So the Bulldogs do have that.
They do, and certainly have a great supporting cast for these quarterbacks, outstanding receivers and backs that can catch the ball out of the backfield as well as run. Speaking of those two, we have Godwin and DeAndre Swift, both to talk about them a little bit. We want to talk about that unbelievable.
I think Godwin's the leading receiver.
Yep, right now,
so far
absolutely.
The season, so he's the go-to.
He is, and I tell you, by that one-handed Odell Beckham-style catch in the end zone for the go-ahead, stay-ahead touchdown, I think that's a force to be reckoned with, that from to Godwin.
An awesome catch, and actually a great throw from Fromm. He threw it away from the defender over that left shoulder in a corner route. So.
And as a freshman, that's I think he showed that several times throughout the game, that
nice
he knows
touch.
where to put the ball, so it's only his receiver or nobody getting that ball.
But that's a highlight catch.
That is.
If I've ever seen one.
That is a highlight catch. That is a play of the year catch. That's going to be something that Godwin will have on his NFL highlight reel. What do you think going into his future career?
It's been on the news. It's photographed. It's probably going to turn into a poster somewhere.
I'm sure there will be plenty of Georgia Bulldog students that will have that poster up, and I should say wannabe students as youngsters growing up in the state of Georgia wanting that poster all over their room and everywhere. So an outstanding catch by Godwin, an outstanding game all around, I think, by number 5. In addition, number 7 on the offense. We talked about number 7 on the defense. So we'll talk about that briefly in our next segment, but we'll wrap up and take a quick break here. But DeAndre Swift coming up with that big third down conversion. There was about a 41-yard run. I think he showed that he's going to be yet another running back to be reckoned with. So we'll talk about that a little bit more and a little bit about some SEC talk, maybe about some other games, and see how this game and Georgia Bulldogs are comparing to some of their SEC or future SEC opponents coming up later this season. So we'll take a brief break here on DawgDial here at in Woodstock, Georgia at Buffalo's. We'll be on Facebook and on the CRM Sports Network. So stick with us. We'll be right back on DawgDial. Okay, we're going to put that back up, and we are back, right? Here we go. Let's get started. We are back here with DawgDial from Buffaloes in Woodstock, Georgia. Welcome back on Facebook Live as well as on our CRM Sports Network on DawgDial. We are excited to be here and talking about, again, more Georgia football. We are thick into the season. I'm J-Dog Mendlinger here with Taco Thompson, and we are excited to start moving forward on this season. But a couple things with this, let's discuss from this Notre Dame game. Some fun facts. Let's go into a little fun facts.
Did you see Harry Dawg?
I did see Harry Dawg
at the game.
Well, I saw Harry Dawg, but Ugga was missing. Did you notice that? Ugga, well, it wasn't a no-show.
See him.
It wasn't a no-show. I'm not sure if you were aware of this, Taco, but Notre Dame Stadium has a no-animal policy. I'm not sure if you caught that on the broadcast or here. They have a no live animal policy, so none of their opponents are allowed to bring in a live animal. So I'm not sure what that makes their leprechaun mascot. I guess he's allowed in because I saw him on the field.
Yeah.
But no live animals allowed in the stadium. So Ugga was.
Ugga had the weekend off.
He had the weekend off. He got to rest. Going into a couple of home stretch games and in the busy SEC schedule coming up down the road. So he got to relax. Probably had a spa day or something. I bet he had a little masseuse come in or who knows what. But back in Athens, Georgia, took a little rest, a little R&R. And I think, that's kind of funny. Not too many stadiums or teams have that requirement because Ugga is known to be what? One of the best mascots around, if not the top mascot in the nation for collegiate football.
He's won the top award a couple of times.
He has.
But hey, do you know the history of Harry Dawg?
No.
It's a good little nugget.
Here's a nugget. Well, give me a little nugget there,
when
Taco.
When was Harry's debut?
Harry's debut. I'm stumped.
It has some
kind
of coincidence with this game.
It does, really.
1981, January 1, 1981. That would be in the Sugar Bowl.
The Sugar Bowl against whom? Was
against the Notre Dame
Fighting Irish. How about that? Unbelievable. So that was Harry Dawg's debut.
He was born, and I read up on it. And Tom Sapp met with Coach Dooley at the time. Of course, was the head football coach, and they scrambled to get Harry Dawg. But here's one other little nugget: is who did Harry Dawg replace as a mascot?
That's a good question.
That's a real good nugget.
I wonder if we could put that out to our Facebook Live folks to come up with an answer for that. We've had a few people, I guess you could say, posting on our social media here. A couple of guys, and we'll mention in a few moments. But yeah, let's put that out and see if we can get a DawgDial, as we said, like our Buffalo's wingman, to come through with an answer to that. Who did Harry Dawg replace on? For the Georgia Bulldog football team as a costume mascot, if you want to say that. We'll put that out there and see who can come up with that. And you can answer on our Facebook Live during our broadcast, and we will be able to pick that up and see who can come in with that. We do have some giveaways here. Maybe we could, give something away. If we have someone here at Buffalo's that comes up with that answer, they can come and bring it to us here, and we'll have some fun giveaways here for the folks at Buffalo's.
Free wings.
We have some free wings. We can give out some free wings. We have some delicious wings that I keep smelling that are right here in front of us, but we also have some other wonderful giveaways, compliments of some of the Buffalo's vendors. Yep. So we can give something else away.
Got a question for you.
Hit me with it. See, bring it on.
Get back to football here a little bit.
Yeah.
How would you grade Coach Smart's first big game of the 2017 season?
That's a good question. I'm glad you threw that out there. I think that they, a pretty average game, a grade, I should say, in my.
Kind of a B is where I had it. I kind of had it in the B range.
I'll give you that. You are more the football expert and coaching expert, so I'll let you, throw that out there. But I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
I think some of the coaching staff on the whole had better grades to give compare in different, in all three aspects of the game. But overall, we'd have to give the head coach, one grade. It averaged out to about a B.
I think you've got to be, the offense I would range right in there in about the C grade. Not a dominant passing, not a dominant running, but the offense, the real high grade, the A+ came from the defense, of course.
Defense.
So the defense kept Georgia in the game, the entire game, gave the ball back to Georgia and gave them opportunities. Our special teams, I think, bigger, B+. You had some penalties on that. We had one missed field goal.
Sure.
Other than that, the punting game, the kicking game, the coverage, those were all solid. So I give it there a B. So overall, the offense has got to get better. The one thing that I would say is a team like that, the second game in the season, Georgia's going to have to fix some of these issues. Offensive linemen, penalties, some of the drop passes, prevent those mistakes. This isn't going to be quite good enough for the Dogs to run the table in the SEC.
That is absolutely true. I would agree with you on that. I think you pointed that out quite well. The fact that the SEC is, as we said earlier, a whole different ball game. It's a whole different, a whole different thing to win your first game against, App State, as they should. You come into the Notre Dame game, win with a come in and get the win as an underdog. That is a good win. But the performance, the question is, will it be enough in the SEC East and the SEC overall?
Georgia has a tough schedule, but I like how it's set up. I like the App State, the Notre Dame, the Samford, and then you get into running the table, all SEC. There's a bye week in there. I think October is the bye week. November.
It's I believe in October.
It's
the
a
21st.
Tough schedule.
Before it's just for the Florida game as always.
So it's a tough schedule, but I like how it's set up. Obviously, you got some injuries here early in the season, so you're sorting things out. There's new schemes, new coaches, obviously new players, and so it's good to have this test. Though I think from Notre Dame test, the coaches can see the players, and you did play against high-level talent. So now after a couple of games, we've got the game next week against Samford, and then you should be pretty well set up to run that SEC. And I think what most people are saying right now about Georgia is Georgia's probably the front runner. We didn't see Florida play this weekend. Didn't see a whole lot out of the SEC East. In fact, you saw South Carolina beat up on Missouri pretty good. So South Carolina moved up a little bit in people's eyes, but I think it's still Georgia's to have in the SEC East.
I agree. I think all roads hopefully go through Athens when it comes to that. So what we're going to do is we do have a break, and we'll talk about that. We have a few things to wrap up in our next segment, but we're going to take a brief break here on DawgDial and come back and chat, and we're going to look to some of our comments from our folks out on Facebook that are sending in some social media comments and some social media answers for our Buffalo's wingman question of who did Harry Dawg replace. So we're going to look for that in our next segment, come up with some answers from you folks out there in the social media world and here at Buffalo. So don't go far. We'll be right back here on DawgDial.
is the answer out there?
All right, well, we'll come back to it. All right, here we are. And we are back on DawgDial. Welcome. We are here in Buffalo's in Woodstock, Buffalo's Cafe in Woodstock, Georgia. I am Josh Mendlinger. We're here with Taco Thompson, and we are talking everything UGA football from the previous game of Notre Dame, coming up to talking about this upcoming game against Samford at the home field in between the Hedges. And that's going to be another good game for the Georgia faithful to come out and check with their Georgia Red to come out and show up in droves, much like they did up in
how many
Notre
fans
Dame
do you think? I've heard a number of 40,000.
Yeah, I agree. I've heard that. That sounds about right.
At the stadium, I heard 40%. I think Notre Dame Stadium, I think, holds 70-some thousand. So
sure,
I think 40,000 made the trip. I heard a lot of things about tickets. They were scrambling to get some tickets.
I heard that the UGA faithful made a whole new world of tailgating, brought a whole new world of tailgating to the mix for Notre Dame that they've probably not seen before. I tell you, the Georgia faithful travel well. There's no doubt.
Red looked pretty good.
It does.
The red
in that stadium.
The red and gold, especially with a favorable score for the Dawgs. But yeah, the faithful, and even Coach Smart mentioned it at the end of the game, that it really was an advantage to have a fan base like that travels and loves their dogs. I mean, that had to be a good feeling for the players on the field to hear that kickoff chant for the Georgia Bulldogs.
That it was amazing. I agree, and I think that's something that when other teams and coaches see that, and well, obviously they've seen it now, but I think we might get a few more scheduling invites to other big houses up north, maybe, in the future.
North of the Mason-Dixon.
North of the Mason-Dixon line. And the Dawg faithful do travel well. We know that for bowl games. We know that for any SEC game. As difficult as it might be to get into an SEC game as a visitor by the Dawgs, but I think.
Did you see the graphic on the production? I think they showed comparable ticket prices, and I think the ticket for the Bulldogs Notre Dame was over $1,000.
It was. I did hear that.
So that's a pretty.
Yeah, up close to $1,200, something like that. $1,200.
Supply and demand is a pretty good
that
thing.
Is. I do know a few people who did travel up there. I didn't get a chance. I have some neighbors that went up to the game, brought his whole family up there, and they went to the game. They toured Notre Dame, the campus, a beautiful facility, and I think they were gracious hosts. So I got to thank them for that, for allowing the Georgia faithful to come up and enjoy their time up there north of the Mason-Dixon line. No conflicts other than on the gridiron.
I think a lot of folks were making a weekend out of it in Chicago, nearby Chicago as well. No doubt. It's a great time of the year to be going and
quick trip to Wrigley Field and everything. So
Coach Dooley threw out the first pitch. I don't know if you caught that.
I did not.
At the Cubs game on Friday. Did actually a very good job. Didn't bounce it.
No.
He got it to home.
He was
plate,
an athlete,
and, there it is. So
there you go. Still is at 85 years old. Huh?
You could pick up a Cubs game on Friday, pick up the Dawgs on Saturday, and on the Falcons on Sunday.
The Falcons,
in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. That was an absolutely great weekend to make if you were an Atlanta or a Georgia fan of some sort to go up there. So an excellent time up there.
A sea of red invades Chicago.
Well, that's true.
Something's going to come out of that.
That was
There's going to be something.
I like
that
it.
Pops out of
I do like it, and hopefully there'll be more of it for traveling in the future. So
and Notre Dame, we talk about that now. The home and home, the way things go in college football. Now there's a home and home. So Notre Dame comes to Athens when?
In 2019.
Okay, 2019.
2019.
So there we go.
And make sure to catch that. We got some years to prep for that, and obviously some other big games in the future. But they'll be coming to Athens, and we will be covering that when it comes to it. Of course, you can make mention, if your plans out there in the social media world, reach out to us on DawgDial. We have our Facebook. You can certainly go to DawgDial and make some comments, send some comments and your feedback and any thing you want to mention about the Bulldogs. And then also you want to talk about, you can reach out to us on Twitter at DawgDial, and you can Twitter us, give us some of your Twitter feed and feedback on that as well. So we'd love to hear from you on that. Also, make sure you check us out on our one of flagship radio station is Real Country Q92.3 WMOQ FM in Athens, Monroe, Georgia. So I'm sure they're going to be looking forward to that visit by Notre Dame in 2019. We'll be building up to that.
There are probably plans already in place.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine.
Well, big win at Notre Dame.
Huge.
What do we got coming up next? We got a game this.
We do have a game this. Believe it or not,
so
we have a game.
A little bit about that.
A little bit about Samford. They are not quite an SEC team, but obviously these are the types of games that are, you could say required by your big-time program to have.
Samford's in the Southern Conference, so that's not a bad brand of football, and they know how to play ball in Alabama. In fact, there's some interesting Georgia ties.
Okay. With
Samford. Let's talk about who Samford is. Samford is 2-0.
2-0.
And we've dialed in and looked. They have a decent quarterback at the helm. He was the leading quarterback in the conference, up for All-American honors, and I think he is the preseason SoCon Player of the Year. So far, Devlin Hedges is who I'm referring to, and he's got some talented skill players in Kelvin McKnight and Darius Harvey who catching the ball. They're throwing for around, and they're predominantly a throwing team, so they're throwing for about 280 yards average per game. So they put it in the air. Not a strong rushing team so far, but they've got some big boys on the offensive line, and supposedly their defense is going to be their strength this year.
It sounds like they're going to be a team that our defense, our backfield, our cornerbacks, and those safeties are going to have to deal with. Something that Notre Dame was not exactly challenging the Dawgs on this past weekend. So it looks like it'll be a different approach and a different tactic than what we have seen over the last two games for the Bulldogs to go up against, the defense to go against. So,
another nugget I have for you.
You have, okay,
and
another
for our
one
listeners
of Taco's nuggets. Here we go.
They are coached by a Valdosta State alumni. His name is Chris Hatcher.
Okay.
Also in the day, he played at Valdosta State and went on to coach there. Also had a coaching stint at the mighty Georgia Southern in Statesboro. But guess who coached for Coach Hatcher?
Well, I must say that coached for him.
Coached under him.
His first coaching job as a youngin, so to speak, in the coaching world. At
Valdosta State, when Coach Hatcher was the head coach.
Well, I must say,
State.
I actually do know this answer.
Segue. There you go.
I do know the answer, and those of you out there in our DawgDial world, if you're not sure of this answer, it happens to be our own head coach, Kirby Smart. Who is the man now.
So they know each other.
They do. And that's how these games really come about, isn't it? It's kind of a thank you kind of game or matchup or scheduling situation that these big-time programs do to kind of work with their where coaches have come from or coaches have gone to, kind of part of the brotherhood of coaches, I guess you can almost say that the scheduling comes about.
And again, much like App State, Samford is a talented football team. They're coming in here not just to get a check.
They're
coming here to play.
Right. And it is still a football game. It is still 11 on each side of the field going at it at once, and absolutely something we can't look past. We can't start looking towards the SEC schedule and forget that you actually have to play the game this weekend because
keep chopping the wood.
Chopping the wood.
Coach Smart used that at the end.
You got it.
The other question I want to put out there is who did the first chopping of the wood? Where does that come from?
I don't know. That's a good. We'll have to get to that. Not to mention the tomahawk chop seems to be popping up in all schools these days, even ones that have nothing affiliated with it. But we'll bring that up another time. So before we do need to wrap up on our dog dial soon. But before we do, we need to make mention, speaking of the emotions of Kirby Smart and his chopping of the wood and all that, we had Barry write into us and about the emotions of Coach Smart and enjoying seeing that and enjoying seeing how the Dawgs as a team responded to Coach Smart's emotion, something we hadn't really seen in the past from Coach Rick on the sideline, and I think it was a great call. Thank you, Barry, for writing in on our Facebook about that. It is a super thing to see when a team responds to the emotion of a head coach.
I think that's going to be part of the Bulldogs going forward. I think that's some of what under previous regime maybe didn't have. So I think Coach Smart, and I saw a video in the post game, and this was a good one, that Rodrigo Blankenship got to make an announcement in the locker room after the game.
Okay.
Kid's now on scholarship.
He is.
Local product from Spraberry High School.
How about that?
And the the teammates were roaring, cheering, chanting after that.
Those are great
moments.
moments.
That's a post-game moment that Coach Smart did. So I can feel the excitement and the energy.
Absolutely. We talked about that in the previous DawgDial outing together about how those scholarship offering videos are great. If you have a moment of one of those you want to write to us about, make sure you do. You can reach us at DawgDial on Facebook as well as on Twitter, or even call in on or text in on our text and call-in line 803-816-1170 for next week's show after we wrap up the Samford game up in Athens between the Hedges. We'll certainly be talking about that on DawgDial. But I think it was a great win this past week. I'm looking forward to some great things from the UGA Bulldogs for the rest of this season. It could be a special season. Taco, what do you think?
Starting good. We're 2-0, and let's bring the Bulldogs from Birmingham over and try to make it 3-0.
Sounds great to me. Well, we're going to wrap up our day here at Buffaloes in Woodstock, Georgia. I'm Josh Mendlinger, along with my partner and co-host Taco Thompson. Our executive producer of DawgDial is John Rawl with CRM Sports. Special thanks to our hosts here at Buffaloes, our serving staff, as well as the management here. We want to thank them for these wings and our beverages today. Outstanding place to come with your family as well as some friends. Come on down to Buffaloes in Woodstock, Georgia. I'm Josh Mendlinger. Thank you for listening. DawgDial is a production of CRM Sports. For more info, visit crmsports.com. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.